David Feherty back here on the Rich Eisen Show. How you been, David?
Doing great. Thanks, Richie.
Are you one of those superstitious broadcasters when you interview somebody and they don't do well in their field of endeavor that you fear that they may blame you? David, are you that type of individual?
I think everybody is to a certain extent. I mean, we had a couple of shows last year where I'd interviewed Steve Spurrier and John Boehner, and they both quit.
So you think maybe you were a factor in all of this?
I think that I may have been, one of the shapers of American politics and, of course, college football.
Yes. Well, it's one and the same in many ways. You know, Urban Meyer just endorsed Donald Trump as a perfect example. One of your former guests,
wow.
Donald Trump on Feherty.
Yeah.
You know, but Jordan Spieth, let's just start with that. A 6 over par in the tournament that you're covering this weekend. What do you make of that, David?
Well, he's the defending champion, and I think Jordan is going to be the sort of player that maybe Rory McIlroy is in the same kind of mold, where they're not going to, not that anybody is, they're not going to dominate like Tiger Woods did, and play well seemingly, pretty much all of the time. It's still a really hard game, and there are peaks and valleys. Now, I mean, Jordan Spieth's valleys were basically what my peaks looked like.
Right.
So, I mean, it's still perfectly possible to earn a great deal of money playing golf and not play as well as Jordan Spieth, that's for sure. He's an amazing character. To say that he's resilient, I would think would be an understatement. And 6 over is neither here nor there in the great scheme of things.
So obviously he was the storyline of last year's golf season. What do you think is shaping up to be this year's?
I think we've got a half dozen players, or maybe more, that are going to be the story this year. We've got Ricky Fowler, we've got Jordan Spieth, Rory McIlroy, Jason Day, Dustin Johnson, and just we've got Kevin Kisner, and names that the public may not be that familiar with. Justin Thomas. We've got so many of these youngsters now that are so good. It's amazing. Just listen to your previous piece. I was just wondering what an over-celebration would look like on the golf course.
Well, I mean, it's interesting you bring that up. There's Chichi Rodriguez, right?
Yes.
I guess what he used to do.
That's right.
Tiger, when he used to do the big old wind-up fist pump.
Yeah, but there was always something sort of tremendously electric behind that.
Sure.
There's sort of, Jason Duffner could tear a piece of toast in half, or, I don't know, crush a grape.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess those are the unwritten rules of golf, right?
Well, you see, we were always very careful of the gloat, what we called the gloat, because shortly after the gloat, there was the reverse gloat. In golf.
Yeah, there always is.
Nobody's throwing you anything, or you're not jumping and catching anything. It's, you've got your own ball there, and you're supposed to be able to control it, and it's essentially uncontrollable. So I think that's why it's a little more demure.
Well, but because there's always the humbling experience in golf is always at the next tee box or the next green.
That's right. That warm, fuzzy feeling you get is, confidence. It's just, it's before you fall on your ass usually.
But what would happen if somebody started waving their putter around like it was a sword in 2016, David?
Well, I think they would attract undue attention, because, it's just the sort of thing that'll make you unpopular in a hurry. If you do go into overgloat.
Right. Overgloat.
It's just so quickly followed by the reverse gloat that, there's very little chance that it's going to happen.
Yeah, I guess so.
More often than not, you'll find a caddy over-celebrating.
Really?
Oh, well, yeah. That's happened from time to time where, players had to go over and say, look, really, cheer down.
Cheer down.
Cheer down.
That's the phrase. Yeah. David Feherty joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show, again, the Valspar Championship outside of Tampa on NBC this weekend, where David's part of the crew. Your show, back for a 6th season, it's such a fantastic show, David. And I've told you this before, and your producers just bringing out you. It's your personality that comes through all of this. And one of the things that I saw in recent seasons is you let John Daly take a full swing hack at a golf ball that was teed up in your mouth.
Yes.
That actually, what was that like for you, David?
Well, it was a relatively normal experience with John. John and I will always be friends because we know too much about each other. It's 30 years now it's been, or maybe even longer.
Right.
I've known Johnny, and really any tour pro is not going to hit you in the mouth, if they're trying to hit a ball
Right.
off a tee. The hard part was actually holding it steady in my teeth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, that's, if it falls, that might be an actual issue if he tries to follow the golf ball there.
That's
David.
the thing. You don't want that to happen, in case he's feeling overly zealous and decides he has to try and hit it like a low burner.
So you've interviewed George W. Bush and then maybe the next president of the United States and Donald Trump. How similar are the golf games between W and Trump, as far as you could tell?
They might be there might be similar players, although I think I'd give W the edge.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How so?
Well, no, he just plays more. I don't think Donald plays a whole lot. He's been a little busy recently.
Yes, but I guess, he has played before. I've heard now, David, I don't know if this is going to be an issue with me getting a tweet about this, but I've heard sometimes the best stick in his bag is his pencil.
Oh, well, I don't know. I've never been on course or a part of that particular group. The golf that I follow is in many ways a lot more boring. People keep hitting it on the fairway and on the greens and stuff like that. Yeah.
Who's the one guest that you haven't had yet that you'd love to book for Feherty?
Well, I'd love to have Tiger, and I'd love to be able to show people, the Tiger that I watched grow up, and the way that he was when he initially came out. And he still is that kid, to a certain extent. We kind of wore all the polish off him over the last 20 years. I would love to, and Bill Murray is another one. I'm pathologically afraid of tight spaces and Bill Murray. And I think he was... He was really responsible in a lot of ways with the movie that he doesn't like to talk about. He doesn't like to talk about Caddyshack. He's a wonderful actor.
Yes.
And that probably, you shouldn't think about, Bill Murray, in those terms. But it popularized the game, right around the time when VHS and Betamax were having a war and HBO had come out, and every college dorm had a copy of Caddyshack and Stripes and Animal House and Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles, and people know the dialogue to them. Of
course.
To this day. And I think it sort of lampooned everything that's wrong with golf and maybe made it a little more popular.
Well, sure. The screaming, people scream it's in the hole is because...
Yeah. Rat farts. Who doesn't love rat farts?
Well, that's Spalding, isn't it? Wasn't that Spalding?
No, that was the Bishop.
That was the... Well, he screams out rat farts.
When he missed the putt, yeah.
Well, Spalding, I think, was double turds.
That's right.
If I'm not...
right.
I'm mixing up my rat farts and double turds, David.
And it must be me on the other end of the line. Yeah.
Pardon me on that front. But in terms of Tiger right now, do you think we see him back on the course?
Yes.
This year? You do?
I do. And I think he's been very careful. I think he probably knows that this might be his last chance to take a shot at this. And, he really wants to make sure that he's healed up properly. It wouldn't surprise me if we don't see him this year. But I do think that we'll see him again on the golf course. I certainly hope so.
When you say last chance to get this right, that if he has one more setback, that might be a wrap, is what you're suggesting?
Well, I'm not sure how much more effort we can ask of him. He clearly loves the game. He could have bought one of the Bahamas by now and declared himself a republic if he didn't love the game and if he didn't love to compete the 2 or 3 years that he's had. I suspect that, and I don't know, but I really suspect that this is probably he feels anyway, this is the last chance he's going to have, so he needs to get it right.
Well, David, I'm looking forward to your show with W on March 21st, and then Jason Day, March 28th, another season of Feherty on the Golf Channel. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for calling.
Thanks a lot, Rich. Thanks for having me on.
Always, David. Thank you. That's David Feherty.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.